This video is to provide an informal training on the recent December release that we made, which included a few new reports in the Money Max account that our customers have been asking for. The three new reports can be found, obviously, in the reports dropdown. You can access the release notes as soon as you sign into either your personal or demo account. You can direct customers to the pop-up. Alternatively, you can always access the latest release notes by clicking on the Help dropdown. Now, I'd like to focus first on the income and expense report. I'm using a regular John and Rebecca Jones reset scenario. I have added a year's worth of transactions. Using your demo account, you can sign in to your back office, reset to a scenario, and record up to 3 months of transactions if you want to show this to your clients, or again, you can use your personal account. So the income and expense report is fantastic, and then it shows what you earn, what you spend, and where your money is going. And this is interactive, and by default, it shows you your income and expenses for the last 3 months. And there's a few different components for this. There's this interactive chart where we can see if we hover in November, they earned $9,900 in income. We can see how much their expenses were, and those are selected, and that's the last 3 months. You can select this dropdown and change what is shown in both the chart and the list below, and change your time period. So for example, if I wanted to, I can look at just last month, and we can see that John and Rebecca Jones received a total of $8,600 in income. And that's shown here as well. If I look at the expenses that are listed, which shows the date, the account, the payee, the category, and the subcategory, as well as the totals, we can go down to the income and see that they, in addition to interest, the construction group and the realty group each received income for a total of $8,600. And as is usual for December, they overspent a little bit. And this is a fantastic report to view that, but it is interactive as I suggested. So we can see their total income. We can also see how much they spent in total. And you notice there's 3 different sections here, and that is we break up their expenses, their interest payments, their principal payments, and any principal payments if they were made, or extra principal payments if they were made. And I want to focus for a moment on this interest payment item. This is why customers purchase the program. We're trying to eliminate that interest because in December alone, John and Rebecca Jones spent $2,190 in interest. That's a powerful number. And we can actually look back at the entire year and see how much they sent to interest. That's what we want to eliminate. That's what we want to cancel. I'm going to go ahead and change this from last month to, let's look at the last year. Now we can see each month's income and expenses in comparison. That can be especially useful. And we actually see that there are some months here that were over. And if we hover, we can see that those were months where they made extra principal payments. That's illustrated that they've been keeping up with their program and making regular contributions to their savings account. And the program is recommending extra principal payments. But I'm going to go ahead and instead of just looking at this last year by month, I'm going to change this to look at by year. And this is going to enable us to see, okay, their entire income for 2024 was $105,800. Their total expenses were $50,440, and their interest payments. So they spent over $27,000 just on interest. But in 9.9 years, we're going to have eliminated all of that. And that's going to have a substantial impact on their ability to build wealth by getting rid of those interest payments. Something else that you can do, as I mentioned, this is interactive, is you can click into any one of these categories and it will filter the list below. And in this case, I'm filtering by category. So again, we're looking at the income and expense report. We're looking at 2024 expenses by category, and we can see each of the categories that they've entered into the program. We know that for 2024, they spent $10,200 on food and dining. This is tremendously helpful to look back at what you've done throughout the year and change your program to adjust for, what you're going to be doing in 2025. I do this personally where I will look back at a particular category. Travel is a perfect example. See how much was spent in 2024 so that I know that I've set up a budget for that in 2025 as well. Because for me personally, I know that my travel is expected to be about the same this year. And that way, when I receive transfer suggestions, I feel confident in following those strategic transfers because I've accounted for what's coming into and out of the Money Max account program. So this is a wonderful way to look back, not just at a month, but even at an entire year. And again, each of these are broken down individually. So I can see exactly each transaction for gas and fuel, all the bills and utilities, just tremendously helpful. And with this report, you can click into any particular category. So I've clicked into bills and utilities. I'm dialing even closer in accuracy so I can see, oh, this is how much was spent on water, telephone, gas, power, and those totals are down there as well. And if you notice, as I've been selecting items, it's been leaving breadcrumbs for me to go ahead and zoom back out to whatever I've selected. So again, we can let's just look at what happened in December. Let's look at our December expenses and we can see, okay, this is how much was sent on shopping. Here's what I sent to my pets. And I also use this to see maybe what I had uncategorized and look at those categories and then maybe increase the accuracy. Now you can do this not just by category, but also by tags. So if I select tags here, and I've just put in some basic ones, many of the transactions were untagged, but I also have some such as, tax deductible. Now I didn't have very many in December, but this is infinitely flexible. You could set up, his and her. That's how you want to track it. You can do tax deductible. Let's look at the last year, and let's again look at this by year. Let's select expenses, and instead of choosing category, let's look at tags. And many were uncategorized, but I can view any one of these categories. And I personally use this to track my medical expenses, so I know how much I'm going to contribute to a spending account or health spending account. I also use it to track vehicle expenses, tax deductible items, and at the end of the year, you can track each of those transactions and group them in a way that you can't with just categories. Tags can be managed. It's very simple. If you go to the Manage Tags section, you can create your own. One example I gave was I like to track medical. And so if I add that tag, when it comes time to either executing action or recording a transaction, when you record that transaction, let's just say this was a withdrawal, that tag will appear. And as long as you've set these up and are indicating what those tags are, at the end of the year or end of the month, you can group those transactions. And that's honestly very useful, especially if you take advantage of the next section or next feature that we've built, which is the export transactions. I personally love this one. I'm a data nerd. It doesn't need to be advanced. You might not need to take advantage of this, but if you're somebody who likes to work in spreadsheets or you just want access to all of the data that you've entered into the program, you can take advantage of the export transactions. Another reason that this might be helpful is if your accountant at the end of the year is asking for a list of transactions that are, for example, tax deductible, you can just download this CSV and give that to them instead, which they'll thank you for instead of just sending them a PDF or screenshots. Export transactions is very simple. You just choose a date range. You can choose all, or you can say, I just want to look at the last year, and you can download that transaction and open it up in either Google Docs or spreadsheets. And from there, I'm not going to teach you how to use a spreadsheet, but your accountant will know, or if you are already familiar, you can then, filter these like, okay, I only want to look at tax deductible transactions. and find that amount. Or, I want to look at all my vacation transactions, and you can filter those. Obviously, I'm only using a demo account here, but this is infinitely flexible for those who want access to that data. And you will have customers that are interested in this functionality. The last feature or report that I want to talk about is the cash flow report. This is very similar in structure to the income and expense report, but instead we're actually tracking actual money movement, or the movement of money in and out of your asset accounts. So it's looking at checking, savings, money market, or CD accounts. And when you have a transaction, for example, if I went to the gas station and I use my debit card, I'm going to see that checking transaction right away in this cash flow report. But if instead I put that transaction on a credit card, well, it's not going to show up in this cash flow report as a line item. It will instead show up in the next month's, or it would instead be reflected in the payment that we're sending to the credit card, which could be last statement balance, or it can be, if it's just whatever portion of the minimum payment. And so this is really, I like this report because it can show what's actually coming into and out of my checking account, which can be different because with, I like to pay last statement balance. And so when I just because I swipe my card doesn't mean it's leaving my checking account for, depending where I'm at in that statement period, could be 45, 50 days later. So if I filtered this to last month, these were the withdrawals, the deposits and withdrawals that impacted the checking and savings accounts. And if there are any credit card payments, they'll be reflected, but the transactions from the credit cards will not be listed. For a thorough overview, again, I recommend reviewing the release notes. There will be training that's included in the program. I just wanted to give a high-level overview of what this functionality can do. I encourage you to use your own personal MoneyMax account, review your own data, because that's where this will be meaningful, is when you can look at your own numbers. But if you want to, you can go to your back office, access your demo account, and just record 1 month's worth of transactions and play around with these reports. I think you'll find that this year, the reports is going to be an exciting piece of functionality that's just constantly improving. And I hope you keep up to date with that. So thank you for your time.